Namaste, everyone. Michele Granberg here. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy, promoting a world of empathy and compassion for every animal and human. This is part 2 of our conversation with Cedar Run Wildlife Refuge. Cedar Run is a nonprofit dedicated to the preservation of New Jersey wildlife and habits through education, conservation, and rehabilitation. Stay with us to meet a few animal friends and learn how you can be an ally for wildlife. Positive Energy starts right now. So Positive Energy is welcoming back Tracy and Jim from Cedar Run Wildlife Refuge. Hey, you guys.
Hi,
Hello.
Thank you so much for having us.
So Tracy, you're the Director of Development and Communications over there.
Yeah.
So what do you do and what's the mission of Cedar Run?
So I focus on fundraising, grant fundraising, and special events, as well as the communication. So to get our word out and to raise the funds in order for us to do all the great work that we do in our wildlife hospital, in our education, and to the public. So Woodford Cedar Run Wildlife Refuge is located in Medford, New Jersey. We focus on 3 things. We focus on wildlife rehabilitation. So we have a rehab hospital on our premise that we see over 6,300 different wildlife in need of care. So injured and orphaned wildlife, all native to New Jersey, over 140 different types of species that we see. We have an environmental education team, so Jim is part of that. So you'll learn a little bit about what Jim does in our education team. But we have, we go out to schools, we have field trips, we're open to the public, we have public programming, we have special events. And the other part of our mission is habitat preservation. So we're on 171 acres of land. We have a nature center that's open to the public, as well as over 3 miles of walking trails. So we're open to the public 7 days a week. So come on out and see us in Medford.
So Jim, yeah, as she said, you're the after-school coordinator and educator. You must love your job.
I mean,
What do you do?
It's not a bad day getting to spend it outside, handling animals or going on hiking trails. Not bad at all. So as the after-school coordinator, it is one of our newer programs. We recently got started just this past year. So we come to a couple of our local schools around our area. We were able to bring either some of our animals or some different aspects into the school to have the kids around an hour, hour and a half or so after school, just kind of see some things they may not normally get to see during their normal school day. At least I don't think too many schools are being able to see snake there in the middle of the day. But we also do programs at our refuge itself, have schools come out to us. We can't always go out to a school, so we can have them come to us as their field trip. We do night hikes, we do birthday parties as well. On the weekends, we do a lot of birthday parties, so if you're looking for a birthday, we can do that for you as well. We do a lot of fun things, just trying to get people out there in the wild and learn a little bit what's about them and able to respect it a little bit.
So you have brought Oren with you. He is a northern pine snake, in case you didn't know.
Oh, thank you.
I knew. So tell us about Oren, a little bit of his backstory, and about snakes in general.
Yeah, so a lot of people, unfortunately, are scared of snakes. So we think it's really important for people to learn about them and see them up close and realize that snakes don't want to hurt you. They just want to live their life. With Oren here being a pine snake, he's an endangered species here in New Jersey. These guys primarily live in the pine barrens and the pinelands here in New Jersey. And he likes to live down on the ground. You can kind of see his colors here. Kind of blends in with the sandy soil that we tend to have there. He can actually bury himself. He has a little kind of a blunt, kind of almost shovelly-like kind of nose. He would dig himself down in that soft sand. He can climb trees a little bit. He will go after some animals that might live up there. So you can kind of go all around. Unfortunately, these guys, as I said, are endangered, mainly due to habitat loss. People are trying to take them for the pet trade down on the black market. It unfortunately is with Oren. He was actually, somebody tried to keep him as a pet. And with them being endangered here in New Jersey, can't really do that. So he got turned over to us, but because he had been raised by people, not quite able to go out there back in the wild and wouldn't really learn how to find his food anymore at that point. He kind of got accustomed to people being able to provide his food and wouldn't necessarily be able to avoid predators that growing up he would learn to avoid. So he's here with us.
Do they seem to like people then? Like bond to people? Do snakes bond to people if they're domesticated?
They don't necessarily bond so much as they might get used to your smell and realize that you're not a threat.
Let's see.
So like I've been dealing with him for about 3 years now, and he's gotten pretty used to my scent to realize that, this giant, which, I mean, there's something a couple hundred times my size went and picked me up, I'd probably be a little bit scared. But they're able to realize that some of us, we're just going to handle them a little bit. not be really too scared of us. If you just go pick up a wild one, it's probably not going to be a fan of that. It might bite you, which he's not venomous, so he's not going to send you to the hospital or anything. But they do have teeth, so it does hurt if they do bite you. So just again.
And he's one of our education animals. So he's a wildlife ambassador. That's what we call them. So, like Jim said, they take them to schools and festivals and all sorts of different areas to educate the public. But we do have nearly 60 wildlife residents that are permanently at Cedar Run, so they cannot be released back into the wild for one reason or another. And a number of those are education animals. So we have great horned owl, we have all sorts of different wildlife, and we'll meet another one later on in this show. And we're just as important to talk to the public about why it's not only important to really educate the public about these animals, but also about the wildlife and the habitats that they are in. So the pinelands is really in New Jersey and so important to all of these species, but and why he can only really be found in the pinelands.
Yeah.
So,
because think about what life would be like if we didn't have any of these beautiful indigenous creatures that we share this world with. So, Jim, you talk to a lot of kids. Like, what's one of the most commonly asked questions that kids tend to come up with? Can you think of one?
One of the biggest ones with snakes is some people think they're going to be slimy. They think it's going to be like a big worm, or some people think it doesn't have any bones, and opposite on both of those cases. Snakes actually have lots of bones. He has a long spine all the way from the back of his neck going all the way down to the tip of his tail, and he has, with his size, arguably hundreds of ribs. So we tell people, if you have a snake in your yard or you need to get it out of the way somewhere, when you pick them up, just be careful, because if you squeeze them hard, it's very easy to break their bones. Yeah. And that's when you get bit. If you notice, I'm not really holding him per se. I'm just kind of being a support. My hands are not squeezing. If I'm squeezing him,
around you,
it's going to hurt. So he's just kind of using me kind of like a tree branch. You can kind of think of it just somewhere nice and supportive where he feels safe. He's not going to fall. Nothing's hurting him. And in regards to the sliminess, not slimy at all. Their scales are made of the same material as our fingernails. So if you feel your fingernails, most snakes are going to feel a little bit like that. Some are a little bit smoother. Some are a little bit rougher. I will say Oren is a good show for today because he recently just shed. So his scales are nice and shiny.
Yes.
Especially his belly scales here if they catch the light right. So here you can see.
This is the skin,
This is that shed snake skin.
Wow.
So those scales.
All in one piece, is that?
It comes off all in one. And actually it's kind of inverted. You think if you have like a long sock and you take it off and it kind of turns inside out, it's kind of how they do it with their skin. It comes off of the face first and then they kind of wiggle their way out.
Slip right out.
And comes all right out all in one piece. And people will often find them, and that's a good sign. You want to see those. It means the snakes
they do
are
that when they
grow.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that why they shed? So they can grow?
Think of
and
it.
They keep growing?
Like we always like to say, if you're in a suit of armor, it keeps you nice and protected, but you can't really stretch too much.
Right.
So as you're trying to grow, you want to get rid of that little outer layer here. Just like we shed skin cells every day, they just kind of save it up to do it all at once.
And that, what he's doing with his tongue, that people are so used to seeing, why do they do that? They're smelling, they're feeling? They
are smelling, yes. So he does have a nose with some nostrils up there, but doesn't really smell with his nose. He's mainly going to be smell with his tongue. If you ever see a picture, there's going to be a little wiggly here. If it shows up on the camera here, you can look at some pictures. Snakes' tongues are actually forked. They come out as one and then split into two. Yeah. And since it's in two, he can kind of smell direction. When he pulls his tongue back inside of his mouth, there's a special organ on the roof of his mouth called a Jacobson's organ that he can kind of pull apart those different scents in the air and even tell which direction they're coming from.
How long do they typically live?
Really, really depends on the species of snake. These guys here in captivity, they've had some teens, even 20s. In the wild, usually a little bit less, a lot of thins out there trying to harm them. He's roughly about 5 feet, which is pretty close. They can get up to about 6 feet or so. So he's almost full size there. But should be with us for quite a while, hopefully. He's doing good.
So nice.
He's one of our favorites.
Is there any other sort of like little known, fact about snakes that when you learned it, you found it like absolutely fascinating? They are fascinating.
They are fascinating.
They just are fascinating because they're so different from us.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely say one of the most fascinating is with their mouth. Looks like a pretty small mouth there. You might not be able to eat too much. But snakes can actually kind of extend their jaws a bit, both down and also their bottom jaw this way. So they can swallow things roughly about 3 times bigger than their head. So if you see his head there a little bit bigger than my thumb, he could eat something bigger than that. He can eat like a whole chicken egg. He could swallow that whole. That would be no problem. Big mouse, sometimes even like a baby squirrel they sometimes will go for, or birds.
Are they pure carnivores or they're omnivores?
So snakes are pure carnivores. They can't eat any vegetable. They can't eat any fruits besides what happens to be in their prey stomach, but don't really digest that. So that is one of their biggest ends, is they are a very good predator. They're able to smell it out with that little tongue wiggling out there.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. I can't have time to ask them all. I just want to ask like a million questions because I love these animals.
Well, if you follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, we have blog posts, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our native species, fun facts about how we can cohabitate, how we can protect our wildlife and our habitats, and all of the fun things that we have going on in the refuge. So,
and you certainly do. Lots of great events, and you're open 7 days a week?
7 days a week from 10 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then members, you can support us to be members. We love our members. We have member-only events. We have discounts. We have all sorts of different things, and that will help, continue on these really great works. But members also have a benefit of coming to the refuge anytime between dawn and dusk. So if you're a really great birder and you want to see really awesome things, we have a lake and our wildlife that you can learn from.
I love it. All right. Well, Oren, thank you for coming on Positive Energy and bringing your own version of positive energy. We're going to stop here because we're going to bring out another friend. Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm really in love with my next guest, Nazar, the Eastern Screech Owl. So, Jim, what is her story? How did she come to you? And tell us about owls.
Yeah, absolutely. So, little Nazar here, a little Eastern Screech Owl. They come in either this gray morph that they call it. You can kind of see the grayish kind of colors both on the front and back here. They also have a red morph, which is kind of a rusty reddish kind of color there. With Nazar specifically, she came to us a few years back. Unfortunately, she had an impact injury. Could have been, we get a lot of, especially these birds of prey that come in from getting hit by vehicles, unfortunately. A lot of them end up hitting windows, things like that. And when it happened, it kind of hit her head first. So at this point, she's pretty much mostly blind. Her eyes don't seem to be able to collect the right amount of information. She can see some small shadows here and there. When you move around, she might kind of glare. But whenever she tries to catch like a live food that's running around, she just can't get it in time. It's moving too fast. She can't see it well enough. So when we determined that, we realized that she wouldn't be a releasable animal. She wouldn't live too long out there on her own. So she became one of our permanent residents and then became one of our wildlife ambassadors here to do some education programs and show people up close what an owl looks like, because most people don't get to see an owl, they just hear an owl. And a lot of people are surprised with her that she's not a baby, she's full grown. She's, by the time they're just a couple months old, already this size. They're the second smallest owl in New Jersey. So owls come in everything from something about this size all the way to something that can be about this tall on my hand there. Our big great horned owls. Wide range in owls here in New Jersey.
So is she called a screech owl because they screech, or do they hoot?
So in New Jersey, the only owls that really hoot, the traditional kind of hooting sound that we think of, would be the great horns. We'd have barred owls that make a little bit of a hooting sound. Some people will say that sounds more like a dog barking. For the screech owls, they normally don't really screech too much. Naming is always a little bit difficult. Of course, sometimes they name things a very long time ago, and if you're ever out in the woods at night, you hear some strange noises and you don't know what they are. So you might hear a strange noise and then see this flying by and go, oh, that's probably what made it. But in the case of little Nazar here and these screech owls, the most common noise that they make is called a trill or a whinny. It's a little bit like a real quick up and down kind of whistle there. A couple different pitches they can use there. That's the most common sound that they make. They can make some other noises, but that's the most common that you would hear out there in the woods.
Just good. She's a star.
Yeah. So with impact injuries, one of the best ways to prevent that is don't put trash out, even if it is biodegradable. Don't, even if you're eating a banana in the car and you pop out that banana peel in the car, please don't, because then a mouse will come, and then on a roadway, it's just a big open space, which owls really think that might be a field, which is easy pickings for a mouse, and then we'll get hit by a car. So we see that a lot, especially during highways and different things like that. So the best thing to do is don't litter, number one, as well as even if it is biodegradable, make sure to throw that out properly. And if you do find wildlife in need of help because it did get hit by a car, make sure to call a wildlife rehabilitator that is licensed. Cedar Run Wildlife Refuge has 3 licensed wildlife rehabilitators, and we are a small but mighty team. We definitely, our lifeblood is volunteers as well, but make sure to call us. Our wildlife team will definitely help direct on what to do, how to get them to our facility to get the care that they need right away. Because if you got hit by a car, you'd want medical attention right away as well. So make sure not to keep any wildlife. Our main goal at Cedar Run is to keep wildlife wild. So whether it's protecting our native wildlife and habitats, or treating them in our wildlife hospital in immediate care, Cedar Run is definitely a community resource for that.
And so do you have a lot of success with releasing? And do you ever have animals that come back to you twice? Are you able to, do you track and sort of log?
Good question. So we do have tracks and logs. We might not know exactly if the exact same one is has been coming back because of different conditions and different things like that. We did actually release a 20-year-old red-tailed hawk because they were banded. So we were able to look up her band, and I don't remember exactly her story, but banding is pretty fascinating. And one of our wildlife residents, Comet, who is an American kestrel, he came in and he had a band, so we could find out when he was hatched and all of that stuff. But for our releases, it really depends on the condition, right? So with an impact injury, it really depends on what the condition is. Have they been fed improperly? We do love Good Samaritans to bring wildlife to us in need of care, but we always say no food, no water, because it might do more harm than good.
We really want to emphasize that. Can you just repeat that one more time? Because that's so important.
No food or water. It actually might do more harm than good.
People might try to feed them Cheerios or something.
No Doritos, no Cheerios, no puppy formula, no kitten formula for bunnies. Don't call your local pet store. They are not experts in wildlife. They are more experts in domestic animals, and these are not domestic animals. They are wildlife. So our whole goal is really to maintain and make sure that the wildlife remains wild. So please call Cedar Run Wildlife Refuge or your local wildlife rehabilitator to get the best advice.
That's why you're there. So Jim, what's one misconception about owls that you would really love to dispel?
One of my favorite is in a lot of movies and TV shows, they will show the owl spinning its head all the way in a circle, around and around and around. And if she'll cooperate, you can see her head does turn really, really far, but it doesn't do a full circle. So a lot of these big birds of prey, these owls, these hawks, these eagles, have a really flexible neck. And the owls specifically, they have about twice as many bones in their neck as we do. So she can look directly behind her with zero problem, without moving her body at all. They can spin their head roughly about 270 degrees. Humans, we got about 108, half a circle from one shoulder to the other. They can keep going a whole another 90 degrees directly behind them, but she can't do a full circle all the way around. Still has a spine, doesn't quite work that way, but definitely a lot more flexible than you and I.
So do they migrate at all? Do they stay in the same basic territory? Is that related to food and habitat, I guess, related? And do they hibernate?
Definitely related to food, a lot in their habitat there. Most of the owls in our area, we have, I believe, 7 owls here in New Jersey. 4, I believe, stay here year round. 3 are going to be moving around a little bit. These little screech owls pretty much stay here all year long. You can see she's very poofy. Those feathers keep her nice and warm. She only weighs less than half of a pound. So her body is like 90% feather. So these big, giant, poofy feathers help keep them warm even in the winter. And with her excellent hearing, she can actually hear mice and other animals kind of crawling underneath the snow or anything like that. So she can still go down there and be able to find her food even in the wintertime. So she usually doesn't really hibernate, just will kind of go around their little area, which screech owls are one of the most common owls here in New Jersey. If you have pretty much any kind of wooded area, you're most likely going to be able to hear them out at night, making that little kind of trill, that little whistle noise. You won't necessarily see them because this is as big as they get, but you'll be able to hear them out there.
Do they have natural predators? I mean, besides humans?
Yes,
humans
absolutely.
are always the predators,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Unfortunately, we're on the top list of most animals out there. With these little screech owls, some of their other issues, when they're young, still in the nest, they might have some issues with like even snakes coming up there occasionally, even going after the eggs if the parents can't defend them. Once they get a little bit older like this, they have to more so worry about some of the larger birds. If they're out in the day, they'd have some hawks or eagles. At night, even the bigger owls will go after the little owls. It's a owl eat owl world out there for them, unfortunately. Food is food.
When you're fighting to survive.
So they're usually pretty good at avoiding the areas that some of these bigger predators are. It's part of the food chain. The bigger owls and other animals have to eat as well. But they're usually pretty good about trying to find a safe spot for them to be able to live without too many predators going for them.
Yeah, so if you have a gray horned owl in your area, you're probably not going to see these guys. They're really avoiding that because, like Jim said, weighs kind of the size of a cupcake. Well, it looks like a cupcake to, a great horned owl. So you won't see the screech owls around areas that have the great horned owl.
So we were talking a little bit in between about habitat loss specific to New Jersey. New Jersey is so densely populated and overdeveloped. Would you agree? So is there anything, Tracy, you want to say about
for sure
giving people sort of a warning about trying to avoid this habitat loss and what a shame that would be?
Yeah, so with the habitat loss, we'll see a lot more box turtles in danger, and different animals kind of dispersing in more populated areas. So just be careful. Watch the roads for deer. Make sure that you're properly putting and disposing trash so that it doesn't harm any animals, and make sure to clean up and try to protect our native wildlife and habitats, especially in the Pinelands.
I have to say, especially make your yard kind of a safe space for both you and the wildlife. We have to share it. Make sure you leave an area, don't clear cut all the trees and everything. Then one would have too much sun in your yard, you could have issues there. Also need to give the animals a place to be able to go have a little bit of respite. You can grow a little garden just for animals, little pollinator garden, something like that.
What about a bird house?
Birdhouses, these guys will occasionally, you can actually find some instructions online for how to build a birdhouse specifically for these little screech owls. Not all owls will go into what they call them cavity nesters, going inside something. These guys will. Usually they'd be stealing a woodpecker nest or a squirrel nest in there. But they have on occasion been able to put up a bird nest with the right size at the right height. And people have been very lucky to have them move in their backyard sometimes. But
and while we love wildlife and we want to keep wildlife, make sure not to feed wildlife. Please don't feed wildlife. Don't put out scraps. Don't put out apples. Don't do that. Really, that habituates some animals, so they really see us as a food source. And that will just attract animals, which will bring prey and predators and all sorts of different issues with that. So make sure to keep wildlife wild. It's best not to touch, not to keep. Call your wildlife rehabilitator if you do find animals in need of care. If you do have, let's say, a skunk and you don't want them there, you can certainly call Cedar Run and a wildlife rehabilitator to talk about different options and how to coexist with our wildlife. And don't feed wildlife. Bird seed is a little bit different. We always suggest black sunflower seeds, but really that's it. Right. We love watching birds. But no other food.
I mean, I imagine people, for the most part, are well-intended without realizing it, but
absolutely,
there's a lot more to it.
Absolutely.
With what we want people to know. So don't feed them, leave them alone unless they're injured, and if they're injured, call you guys.
Yes. And then you can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. Check us out on our blog posts. We'll have a whole bunch of different resources to learn about our native wildlife, about ways to help. Especially in the fall time, don't rake leaves because that is really, that's so important for our habitats as well, and all sorts of different things. So check us out at cedarrun.org. We have a blog and our social media posts.
Well, we only have about a minute left. The time flies, and I just want to stare at her forever. But anything else, Tracy, that ways people can get involved?
Sure.
We can beg for donation. Not beg.
Oh my gosh.
Please
yes.
donate.
So we're not
we need that.
Yes, we're not government or federally funded. So donations, grant funding. We love our volunteers. So come out, support us at an event, volunteer for us, and donate if you want to continue.
Even $1 or $2 for these beautiful,
really
beautiful animals.
Yes. And come visit. You know, we love visitors, so come visit. We're open 7 days a week, and we're located right in Medford.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
And all the information that you provided.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do. We're wrapping up another enlightening show. I assert that humans have a duty and moral obligation to value every species of animal as intelligent, conscious beings, not as commodities for our personal use. Change your way of thinking, because unconditional kindness is a circle that touches all of us. Thank you for watching. Check out MicheleGranberg.com, go vegan, and join me next time on Positive Energy.